Hey, Mark Hamrock with Hamrock Music. In this lesson, we're going to look at the ever-elusive playing over changes. So what does playing over chord changes mean, and why would we ever want to do it? There are actually different approaches to playing over changes, and a variety of reasons why you would want to do it, usually depending on the musical style. But in this lesson, we're going to be looking at changing the scale because of a modulation and going outside of the key, meaning that if you have a chord progression that uses all the chords within the key of C major, say C major, A minor, D minor, G7, I could just play the C major scale and I would be fine. I wouldn't need to change the scale because we didn't modulate outside of the key. But let's say the chord progression goes C major, A7, D minor, G7. The A7 chord has a C sharp note as its third interval, which is not in the C major scale. So we would have to change the scale to go with that chord during the duration that the chord is played for. Now, sometimes you would want to change the scale even over chords that are within the key. A good example of this is in country music using the 1, 4, and 5 chords. For example, again, in the key of C major, the 1 chord, which would be C major, over which I could play the C major pentatonic scale. When the progression changes to the 4 chord, which is F major, I would play the F major pentatonic scale. And then on the 5 chord, the G major, I would play the G major pentatonic scale. So why do all of this if the chords are in the key? It fits the style and it sounds good. It sounds more country-ish. You can also play intervals or arpeggios that match the chord changes as another way of playing over changes, but all of that is for another lesson. So in this lesson, we're going to focus on playing over modulations. Now let's start off with a super simple and begin with 2 chords. I'm going to take A major 7 and F major 7. Sounds pretty cool, pretty jazzy, right? So there's no major scale that has an A major 7 and an F major 7 chord in it. Therefore, we are modulating and need to change the scale to play over the progression. So what scale could I play over the A major 7 chord? A major 7 is the 1 chord in the key of A major, so I could play the A major scale. I could also play the Lydian mode as well as a couple of other options, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. When the progression goes to the F major 7 chord, I could do the same and play an F major scale over it. So right now I'm shifting all over the neck to play over the chord changes, which will prevent me from playing anything cohesive and efficient between the changes. What we want to be able to do is to stay in the same relative position and play both scales. Remember, a position is different than a pattern in that it's a specific 4-fret, 4-finger location on the fretboard named after which fret your first finger is on. First position, second position, third position, so on and so forth. So let's say I start with the A major first pattern on A, which is in the 4th position. How do I know where to play that pattern? Because of the root note. In fact, I call this pattern the first pattern because it's the only pattern that starts on the major root note on the 6th string. When the chord change switches to F major 7 and I want to play the F major scale, then the process goes as follows. I want to find the closest F root note, preferably on the 6, 5, or 4 strings, and then that will tell me what pattern I can play in that position. So my closest F is on the 5 string, which I can play with the 4th finger. So what pattern has the major root note on the 5 string played with the 4th finger? The 3rd pattern. I have to shift up 1 position to play it, but this is the closest pattern. So let me give you an example of this over a jazz context. I'm going to play over changes A major 7 for 4 bars and then F major 7 for 4 bars. And again, I'm using the first diatonic scale, A major, and then switching to the 3rd diatonic pattern, F major. So here it goes. So the process again is that you pick a position. In our example, we were in the 4th position using the first major diatonic pattern. And when the chord change comes, you find the closest major root note on the scale you need to play. In our example, it was F major, and the closest root was on the 5 string with the 4th finger. For me, because I know all of the patterns by shape visually and I know where the root note is within the pattern lights up for me. And I can start anywhere in the pattern. So the root note is really just a landmark for where, position-wise, to play the pattern. Now I could do this for another position and patterns. Let's say we stick with the same chords and scales we're playing, and I start with the A major scale 4th pattern, which has the root note on the 5 string with the 2nd finger. So my first finger is on the 11th fret, putting me in the 11th position. When I go to F major scale, my closest F root note is on the 6th string 13th fret. So again, I would shift up a position and play the first pattern. So I hope this video was informative. Please comment and like below, and look for more to come. Thanks. I'm Mark Hamrock, Hamrock Music Instruction.